Hi tubers, thank you for stopping by again. This is part 3 of my vacation video in the UK, and something juicy happened to me while I was on my travel. So I think I will put that in a part 4 of my vacation. You gotta hear this one. It's very interesting, I think. Anyway, so this video I'm gonna take you through my travels in Scotland, Edinburgh, Scotland, and you will see that I did some drive around on the tram and on the bus. I even took a one-day tour with the tour bus in Edinburgh, and that was absolutely awesome. The tour guide was so good. You know, he just pointed out everything that interests me. The castles, the place where people were hanged, and and a lot of gory stuff from back in the dark ages, I would say. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this video. This is Ryan here from Dublin, Ireland to Edinburgh, Scotland. This is about 10 p.m. flight, and as you can see there are two lines, one to enter the plane from the front and one from the back. It's very cold outside, and just waiting to get aboard this plane. It's daylight now in Edinburgh, and I'm about to take a tour of the city. One thing I do notice is how the buildings are square. You look down the block and it's just one straight, the buildings just square up and line up. It reminds me of the Buckingham Palace guard when they are on a parade. All the soldiers are perfectly lined up. And this is exactly how the buildings are on the streets of Edinburgh. They're just lined up perfectly down there. Another thing, one thing I do notice is how the streets are clean. From time to time you'll pass dumpsters where they are doing construction, but that's about it. The place is very clean. And I can say the same thing about Dublin, Ireland also. Very clean. The streets are very clean. Both places kind of remind me of Tokyo and Singapore, to be honest. Those are two big clean cities that I've traveled.
Market for over 500 years.
And Edinburgh.
Last one took place in 1910. Grassmarket was also where public executions took place. And we will place a marker as we go through the Grassmarket showing where the public gallows used to sit. I'll point it out in due course. I'll come back to that. As we enter the Grassmarket, glance up to the left-hand skyline. Glimpse of the castle there. How impregnable does that appear, particularly prior to the invention of artillery. We pass a good number of pubs as we go through the Grassmarket. When we clear the trees here on our left hand side, we'll get a glimpse of the oldest pub in the old town of Edinburgh, the White Hart Inn. Dates back to 1516, over 500 years old. Rabbie Burns reportedly spent one of his nights in Edinburgh at the White Hart Inn. As we come into Stockbridge here, there's a gap in the buildings on the left. You get a brief glimpse of the Castle Esplanade. We'll see that again later in the tour. where of course the annual military tattoo takes place during the month of August. Over 8,000 visitors attend each performance of the tattoo. Amazing spectacle. Now, I talked about the gallows site. The marker there is known as the Covenanters Memorial. And the reason for that is that over 100 Covenanters were hung on the gallows here in the Grassmarket during a terrible period in Scottish history, a period known as the Killing Time, religious persecution at its very worst, 1681 to 1688. We're just passing it now, on the left here, the round raised marker. If your eyesight's keen, you'll notice the raised gallows on the cobbles to the left of that. And then Mirror Street going up the hill to the left, Diagon Alley, perchance. There are those who believe that's where Rowling got her inspiration from. Crewgate comes into view directly ahead of us, second oldest street in the old town of Edinburgh. Georgia Ford Bridge down there, we'll cross that shortly. But first we head up Candlemaker Road. Named after the candle makers, moved here because of the dangers of fire. Also because of the smell. Candles were historically not made from beeswax as they are today. They were made from animal fat, from tallow, and the smell, I understand, was quite repugnant. Candlemaker Road was the old southerly route into the old town of Edinburgh. King James IV of Scotland would have travelled this route with his young 13-year-old bride, Margaret Tudor, sister of King Henry VIII of England. Candlemaker Hall on the right there, opened 1772. And at the top of the street, on the left, very quick glimpse of the back of Greyfriars Bobby. Statue of the little dog just next to the lamppost. Story goes, little dog was 2 years old when his master, Jock Gray, a night watchman and policeman, died of tuberculosis, buried in Greyfriars churchyard. For the next 14 years, the little dog slept on his master's grave, only leaving his graveside at 1 o'clock each day, when the 1 o'clock gun was fired, to go off in search of food. Understandably, the little dog became a firm favourite with the locals. In fact, the Lord Provost of the day, William Chambers, granted the little dog freedom of the town. You can in fact still see the little dog's collar and lead and dog bowl in the Museum of Edinburgh in the Royal Mile. We'll pass that later in the tour. The story was picked up by an American lady who wrote a novel about the dog's loyalty and devotion. And then, in 1961, Walt Disney picked up the story and gave us the film Greyfriars Bobby, gave the little dog worldwide fame. Now check out the old building coming into view directly ahead of us, with the turrets and the scaffolding and the sheeting. That is the world's first purpose-built student union, Teviot House. 7 bars in Teviot House. Certainly got the priorities right, that's for sure. Very large grey building on the left here, that's the medical faculty of the University of Edinburgh, where Burke and Hare brought the fresh corpse, rewarded with a princely sum of £7.10 by Dr. Robert Knox. Meadow Walk on the left there stretches down to the meadows. Very large green grassy area. Used to be the home of the Borough Law, gave the old town of Edinburgh its water supply for many years. Old Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh on the left here. Florence Nightingale had involvement in the ward layout of the Old Royal. There were 6 Nightingale wards therein. Closed in 2001, recently reopened as the Futures Institute at the University of Edinburgh. Right hand side of us, great example of Jacobean architecture, George Heriot's School. George Heriot was a very wealthy individual. He was a goldsmith to King James VI of Scotland. His nickname was Jingling Geordie. He walked around with so much loose coinage in his pockets, and he bequeathed his vast fortune to allow for the development of the school, also to allow for the education of fatherless children of wealthy merchants. There are in fact still bursaries available at George Heriot School today for the education of fatherless children. Now you might have noticed modern buildings to the left side of us here. You see them from time to time. They're all part of the Quarter Mile development, a massive redevelopment all round the old infirmary site. The old infirmary closed in 2001 and the Quarter Mile development was completed some years ago. But the old infirmary itself reopened about 12 weeks ago as the Futures Institute at the University of Edinburgh, home to the study of artificial intelligence. Stop 7 on the tour, Wollaston Place, no one upstairs for 7, thanks Louise. Edinburgh College of Art on the right, and then past that on the right, the old Victorian fire station. No longer a fire station, Edinburgh College of Art have taken over the building, but the fire service here in Edinburgh is worthy of note. It was the very first fire service founded in the Western world. It was founded after the Great Fire of Edinburgh in 1824, and the first fire master here was a gentleman by the name of James Braidwood. Braidwood developed firefighting techniques still in use to this day. But he left the fire service here in Edinburgh. He went down to London. He founded the fire brigade in London. He sadly died in 1861 whilst firefighting in London. There is a statue of Braidwood. It's in Parliament Square here in Edinburgh, just off the Royal Mile, next to St Giles. If you're in that neck of the woods, try and catch a glimpse of Braidwood's statue. Now, you may remember earlier in the tour, we made mention of the Argyle House. Very large, very grey, very concrete building, comes back into view, just on the right hand corner in front of us here. Opened in 1967 as a government building, now an ex-government building, but it might surprise you to know it's a great example of 1960s brutalist architecture. To the extent that today, Argyle House is a listed building, which I think is incredible. I think it's the ugliest building in the city of Edinburgh. Shows what I mean. Now I promise you this view again. We're back in to Spittal Street. Ahead of us, the castle and Castle Rock. We do have a stop at the foot of Castle Rock, stop 8 for the West End, Johnston Terrace and theatres. No one up the stairs for 8, thanks. Castle Rock is an old volcanic plug. There's been evidence of human habitation discovered on the top of Castle Rock dating back at least 8,000 years, which I think is incredible. It takes us back to the Mesolithic period. I had to look that one up. Glance up to the left-hand skyline, get a glimpse of the Great Hall with 4 large windows. Notice the apertures in the walls below for the dungeons under the Great Hall. And going round the corner to the right as you look are the royal apartments. That's where the young Mary Queen of Scots gave birth to the baby that would one day become King James VI of Scotland, first of England. Hogwarts School, right-hand skyline. Not really, it's the front of George Heriot's. We'll see it again, past the old barracks building on the right here. Queen Victoria to thank for that. She wanted better accommodation for soldiers serving in the castle. But George Heriot's School comes back into view on the right. Work on the school started 1624. Oliver Cromwell used the building as a hospital in 1650. First pupils were there in 1659. And if you're a Potter fan, I'm sure you'll recognise Hogwarts. Thanks, Louise. Coming into the main stop on the tour now, stop 9 for the castle. They moved the stop from the Lawn Market right to the top of Johnston Terrace at this time of the year. So this is stop 9 for the castle, the Camera Obscura, the Scotch Whisky Tasting Centre, the Tartan Bay Museum. Buses here every 12 minutes, folks. Last one, 6:45 this evening. That's fine now, take your time. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dale. Comes into view on the left-hand side with the hawk sticking out the side of the building, recently refurbished. There is an ice cream parlour on the ground floor. Now you might notice that section of the Royal Mile in front of us is not open to through traffic. So we actually leave the Royal Mile here. We'll rejoin it very shortly at the other side of that section. But first of all, we'll turn and head to the right along George IV Bridge. Now you might have noticed in that section ahead of us we have St Giles. You can see the very distinctive spire of St Giles directly ahead of us there. The Scottish crown. It's often called St Giles Cathedral. Technically, that's not quite correct. There's no bishop sitting at the seat today. It's a Church of Scotland building. So technically, it's St Giles High Kirk. It's open 7 days a week, free of charge. Past the French Institute as we go into George IV Bridge here on the left, and then there's a gap in the buildings. Glance through the gap, you get a very quick glimpse of the old Parliament Hall. If you're in that neck of the woods, try and wander in. Beautiful inside. Then we pass the National Library of Scotland on the left here before we cross over the Coogate. Second oldest street in the old town of Edinburgh, 60 feet below us on either side. Was for years known as the Street of Palaces. It's where the rich and wealthy had their properties. More room than on the Royal Mile. Now I mentioned earlier, Greyfriars Bobby. Statue of a little dog comes back into view, right hand side of us here. When the buildings end, set of railings, end of the railings, lamppost, next to the lamppost, statue of Greyfriars Bobby. The van will cut it out. Turn into Chambers Street, home to Stock 10 for the National Museum here on the right, amazing building. Open 7 days a week, free of charge, 10 AM to 5 PM. No one for 10 upstairs, thanks to those. Foundation stone of the National Museum laid by Prince Albert in 1861. Opened as the Royal Museum in 1866. You can still see statues of Prince Albert and Queen Victoria on the right hand roof line. Right hand side of a statue of William Henry Playfair, mentioned already, will do again. And then coming into view on the right hand side of us, my favourite building in the city of Edinburgh, the Old College. It opened in 1789. Just think about that for a minute. It's the year in which the Bastille was stormed. Architect of the Old College, Robert Adam. Adam sadly died before it was complete. William Henry Playfair responsible for its completion. There's a beautiful dome on the roof of the Old College building. We're too close to see it here in Chambers Street. I'll point it out at the very end of the tour. There is also a beautiful quadrangle in the heart of the Old College. It's home to the Talbot Rice Gallery, a free gallery of contemporary art. That's in the beautiful hall in the quadrangle of the Old College. I'm not a subscriber to Netflix, but I understand there's a new series started earlier this year called One Day, and evidently a lot of the scenes from One Day were filmed in the quadrangle of the Old College. The main entrance is just round the corner to the right. When we turn to the left and head on to South Bridge, glance to the right, you'll see the front of the main entrance. Notice the pillars on the front. It took 16 horses to haul each pillar up North Bridge. The Old College is built of Craigleith stone. Most of the new town of Edinburgh is built from Craigleith stone, but it was exported worldwide as far afield as North America. Buckingham Palace in London is built from Craigleith stone. The earliest record I've seen of Craigleith stone being used, it was used in Edinburgh Castle here in 1615. The quarry, Craigleith Quarry, was about 3 miles west of the centre of Edinburgh. It was filled in after the Second World War, 1948 filled in. So we turn on to South Bridge, opened 1788, 19 arches in South Bridge, one archway open to view today. Just crossing over that archway now. Takes us over the Coogate, 60 feet below us on either side. Interesting little street today. The Cougate's actually closed to through traffic after 10 o'clock in the evening because of the number of revellers that wander the Coogate. It's home to many pubs, hostelries, nightclubs, very popular by the student population and the younger generation. South Bridge, when it first opened, very quickly became a busy thoroughfare. Merchants very keen to capture passing trade, so South Bridge very quickly became a busy shopping street. That's why there's only one of the 19 arches on South Bridge open to view today. There is one building on South Bridge I like to point out. It's the old church building just to the left of us here. I've always known it as the old Tron Kirk. I understand it's no longer a church. It's now where artists can display and sell their wares. But it takes its name from the old Salt Tron. And the old Salt Tron was a wooden weighing beam situated under where the old church building lies today. It was used to weigh merchants' produce. If a merchant was found to be selling produce underweight, they'd be nailed to the old Salt Tron beam by their ear. and roughly removed at the end of the day's proceedings would then be earmarked, which indicated they were a dishonest merchant. Now, when we turn back onto this section of the Royal Mile, we do have a stop in this section, stop 11 on the tour, for John Knox House and the Museum of Childhood. Stop 11, no one up the stairs for 11, thanks Louise. Always smile when we pass the hotel building on the right here. You might notice the plaque on the corner, opened 1990. I think the architects did an amazing job. I think it looks about 200 years old. Actually sits on an old gap site, so it's a real improvement. We do have the oldest inhabited house on the Royal Mile. Coming into view, just tucked into the left-hand corner, Mowbray House. And on the pavement outside Mowbray House with an old wellhead, dates back to 1675, sure it's seen many refurbishment over the years, and it's where the citizens of the old town would have had to have gathered to collect their water supply. And jutting out onto the pavement, just in front of the old wellhead, on our left-hand side, John Knox House. I'm always in awe when we pass John Knox House. If you think about it, Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. Parts of John Knox House date back to 1470. That certainly puts things into perspective, at least in my book, at any rate. Hello there. Now we have passed a little close behind us now, but I'll mention it at any rate. If you're walking down this neck of the woods, it's between Thistledown Nicely and the Whiskey and Wine Shop, and it's called Paisley Close. And the reason I like to mention it, if you're walking past, you'll see there's a little head carved on the top of Paisley Close. And the close is often known as Hever-Waugh Close, and the house above, Hever-Waugh House. In 1861, the building that was there collapsed. 35 people killed. Whilst the rescuers were frantically digging in the rubble of the collapsed building, a young voice was heard to shout, "Hever-Waugh, lads! I'm not dead yet!" And it was a young boy, a 12-year-old boy, Joseph McIver. That's his head that's carved on the top of Paisley Close. Hello there.
Hiya.
He became known as McIver, the survivor. He was pulled alive from the rubble of the collapsed building. And I think it's amazing that 160 years or so after the event, we are still able to tell the story of Joseph McIver. McIver the survivor. I think it's wonderful. Now, I might surprise you when I tell you we're about to leave the old town of Edinburgh. You may have noticed directly ahead of us we have a junction with traffic lights, and where the junction and the traffic lights are situated, this was the site of the Netherbow Port. And you may remember that port was another name from gate, from the French, la porte. And the Netherbow Port was the main gate guarding the eastern approach to the old walled town of Edinburgh. The town walls were stretched on either side of us at the junction ahead of us where the traffic lights, hello there, are today. In fact, when we cross the junction ahead of us, if you glance to your right, if you can follow my directions, you'll be looking down St Mary's Street, where the town walls are stretched. Foot of St Mary's Street, another set of traffic lights. Then at the end of the Coogate, the second oldest street in the old town of Edinburgh. Going away from the traffic lights on the right-hand side of the street, you'll see large parts of a wall still standing to this day. And it's parts of the Flodden Wall. And the Flodden Wall was built after the Battle of Flodden. It took place in 1513 in Northumberland in the north of England. And it was where, I hate to say, the Scots were absolutely hammered by the English. Over 10,000 Scottish soldiers were killed at Flodden. In fact, the Scottish king of the day, King James IV of Scotland, was killed on the battlefield. He was in fact the last royal British monarch to lose his life on the battlefield. Now we've entered the Cannon Gate. The Cannon Gate was granted separate borough status by King David I of Scotland in the early 1100s. Retained that status right up until 1865. Became part of the borough of Edinburgh. We go for stop at the Cannons Gate, stop 12 on the tour for the Cannon Gate Kirk, the People's Story Museum of Edinburgh. Going upstairs for 12, thanks Louise. Building come into view on the right hand side with the first floor balcony, Murray House, where the Act of the Union was signed in 1707. Another building come into view on the left with the clock sticking out the side of it, the old Tolbooth, Town Hall, Jail of the Cannon Gate. Building dates back to 1591. Cannon Gate Kirk on the left, you see the royal insignia on the front of the kirk. Tells you that's where the royal family used to worship when they're staying at the palace. Cannon Gate Kirk, the building was used by Bonnie Prince Charlie in 1745 after the Battle of Preston Pans. Preston Pans about 8 miles east of Edinburgh, and the battle there won by the Jacobites. They used Cannon Gate Kirk as a prison for high-ranking officers captured after the battle. Cannon Gate Kirk, by the way, it was also where our late Queen's granddaughter, Zara Phillips, married the English rugby player, Mike Tyndall. There is a little Christmas shop just in front of us here on the left-hand side of the street, and just past that there's a close that I often mention. It's called Dunbar's Close. If you're wandering round this part of the city, wander into Dunbar's Close. It's home to a 17th century garden, and you'd never believe when you're standing in Dunbar's Close you're in the heart of a 21st century city. It's quite amazing, so peaceful. Many a famous individual buried in Cannon Gate Kirkyard there. I always like to mention David Rizzio. He was the Italian secretary to Mary Queen of Scots, and he was brutally murdered in Holyrood Palace, stabbed some 56 or 57 times in front of Mary Queen of Scots. He's laid to rest in Cannon Gate Kirkyard. So is Adam Smith, the father of modern economics. He's laid to rest in the kirkyard there. Merkirk Cross, just to the left-hand side here at the front of the bus. That's the old market cross of the Cannon Gate. It's moved around a bit over the years. It used to be on the other side of the church, and of course if you go back far enough it would have been in the centre of the road, signifying that's where the marketplace was based. I don't know if you'll see it from the back of the bus, but there's a beautiful building up on the hill there. That's Calton Hill. We'll pass that building later in the tour. It's the Royal High School of Edinburgh. Sadly closed in 1968. Should have been the home of the new Scottish Parliament building. We'll pass the side of the new Parliament building shortly, and you can decide which is the nicer looking of the two buildings. Million. Number one sold a couple of years ago for 2.85 million. 1, 2 and 4 used to be overflow classrooms long time ago, or burnt out the school building very short. Monument on our left hand side now to our National Guard, Rabbie Burns. The Burns Monument, architect Thomas Hamilton. He was also the architect of the old school building coming into view on our right. Many happy memories, long time ago, the old Royal High School. Sadly closed in 1968. Should have been the home of the new Scottish Parliament. Great views, skyline of the old town, Arthur's Seat, the crags, great photo opportunity. I talked about the dome and the roof of the old college, very prominent now, left-hand skyline, 45 degrees, figure of learning on the top of the dome. And the old school building on the right-hand side there. You might have noticed there's a blue door in the centre section of the old school building there behind the pillar. It was only ever opened once a year at the end of the annual prize giving, so that sixth form pupils could leave the school building for the very last time in their lives by coming out through the door. We did hear recently St Mary's Music School have taken It's going to become a centre for musical excellence in Scotland. Delighted to hear that. It's called the Hidden Doors Festival. I was able to enter the old building for the first time in 54 years. Amazing. Right-hand skyline, Nelson Monument, Tropical Hill. Colt Hill, great place to wander on a clear dry day. 10-15 minutes sees you at the top. Great views, plenty to see and do up there. St Andrew's House on the left now, opened September 1939 as the Scottish Office. Today holds offices of the Scottish Secretariat, including of our First Minister, John Swinney. Now, many thanks indeed.
Here I am going to go towards the castle, and many people are heading that way, and the line was so long. I just decided to just look at the castle. That's it. I didn't go in. So I really enjoyed this guy playing the bagpipe. Got something in his bucket right there, and he's taking a stroll. Now for the good stuff. I'm going to go to whiskey tasting, and I'm going to taste some good Scottish whiskey. Wow. Too bad I didn't buy any, because I would have to check them in, and I don't want to run the risk of breaking the bottle. I didn't. All I had was a carry-on luggage. No checked-in baggage to put it in, so I didn't buy any whiskey. But I did taste some whiskey.
That are giving balance. Every so often you get really accurate juices that are good best.
Now I'm going for a walk to just relax and reflect on my day. I just walk around town, and it was a beautiful day. It was so nice that day. No rain, no sun, sunny and nice. And you can see many people in the park. Yeah, it was a good day. I was just lucky. Usually the UK weather is really tough. There's your man. Yep.
Turn right toward Princess Street.
Multiple people who will agree with
Turn left onto Princess Street. Turn right toward Princess Street.
Where do we go when this river meets the night? Into these lights, this shelter view. Where do we go when this river meets the night? Down by every side, where do we go when you're gone and by the fire? Until these lights just shatter you. Where do we go when this river meets the night? Thank you very much. Right, just type in Infields and it should get the stuff. This next tune is called Locus. I told you as I told you I told you as I told you and I
Like if you don't like it, no one's making
This
you
is
stay.
exactly what I was.
Like, I feel like we could just go to the next.
You don't live on TV.